On this episode, we're talking to investigative producer Chris Todd about the OJ Simpson case and the Zodiac Killer. We got Chris Todd, investigative producer, on the show. Do you want to start off by telling us, about a little bit about your background and how you got started in this, and then we'll move forward into the other stuff.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Chris Todd. I'm an investigative producer and author here in Los Angeles. I've been working true crime cases for about 8 years. And before that, I was a producer, director, writer in Hollywood for 20 years. And I have about 3 books out right now. And I've been working on this case that we're going to talk to today, this mafia story about the OJ Simpson murders for about 5 years now. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm glad to have you on. And it's crazy when you first told me about the OJ Simpson and the connection with the mafia, and I've been following, what you're saying, and yeah, it's pretty awesome stuff that you've come across, and I believe it. Would you be able to tell the people who don't know so far how the mafia was involved with that case?
Of course, yeah. So, and there's some stuff that's already been leaked and sourced to the media. So the OJ Simpson murders on June 12, 1994 was committed by OJ Simpson, but he had an accomplice. And that guy's name is Charlie Ehrlich. And he was a mobster from Miami, Genovese, and close to the Meyer Lansky crew. His roots go back many years. And if you know a lot about the mafia stories and legends, a lot of these guys connect. So all the families actually connect in some way. They're not as separate as you think they are. So yeah, it's a fascinating story. He came to myself and another producer in Hollywood that he wanted to tell his story. And he tried to hide a couple things about the cocaine and the drugs and some of the elements of the murders with OJ. And there was another guy named Joey Ippolito who was also involved in setting up the murders. The murders were not premeditated, so I don't want it to sound like this was a drug hit. It wasn't a drug hit. Yeah, it was kind of a spontaneous thing that Charlie and Joey kind of set OJ off almost like a time bomb on Sunday night, June 12th. And, the rest is American history, and we can go into details of that depending on how much time we have. But so, yeah,
for sure.
Really,
as much time as you want. That's
okay.
So how did they first meet though? Like OJ and Charlie from that point.
Sure. So OJ and Charlie had only known each other for 3 months. The connection, the real mob connection with OJ goes back almost 20 years. And when OJ was in Buffalo, he was already entangled in some cocaine dealings. There were investigations with him against some of his friends. One of his friends got murdered. Actually, 2 weeks after the murders. He was from Buffalo and he was living in Miami. There's a big Miami connection to all this, as you'll see. And this guy, Joey Ippolito, had known OJ Simpson for many years. And Joey Ippolito was a coke smuggler and marijuana smuggler in Miami. He's originally from New Jersey, and they were part of the De Cavalcante crime family. People have come forward that Joey was involved over the years. I had people, sources, investigators come to me and say, Joey told me he was involved in the murders many years ago. I didn't believe him. And I'm sure Joey could play these cards a certain way. Yeah, I had something to do with those murders. And Joey had extorted a lot of people. He had people killed. There were a lot of people that died around Joey Ippolito. And obviously with any mob guy, you're going to have that. So, the mafia's mandate is gambling, prostitution, drugs, extortion, murder, right? So it all kind of ties in. And OJ liked the fast life. OJ liked the women. He cheated on his wives and his girlfriend many times. That's all documented, okay? He liked drugs. He was addicted to cocaine. And unfortunately, he started to really get closer to Joey in about 93 and 94. And Charlie was introduced to him in 1994, literally a couple months before the murders. So we can go into the dynamics of how this all happened, but that's the background of Joey Ippolito and OJ and AC Cowling's connection to the mafia in LA, in Miami, And if you look at OJ's suicide letter, he thanks Don Sofer. Why is he thanking Donnie? Don was a big mob guy. He owned Turnberry Isle. That was a known mafia hotspot. And OJ used to frequent there all the time. So there's all these connections. There's many other rich guys that get tied in. I'm not going to say too many of their names today, but yeah, it's a fascinating story. And I'm glad you're able to be receptive to it. And I think the truth needs to come out. Right now, I'm being censored by the media nonstop, 24/7. So people like you that have courage, that's why I'm willing to talk to people like yourself.
No, for sure, man. I'm glad to have you here, and I'll try and give you as much time as you want, and to tell your story. I think it needs to be heard.
Sure.
It was a connection strictly with OJ and Joey. Did they? Was that just from drugs? That's how they met. It was through the drug trade.
Yes. And if you look up Joey Ippolito, the speedboat racers, 9 of the 16 speedboat racers get indicted on cocaine smuggling. Why?
Yeah.
Why? All the cocaine cowboys, Sal Magluta, right? All these guys, John Roberts. John Roberts, his name was not John Roberts. It was John Riccobono. Okay. These guys all have different names. They ran this big drug smuggling front for guess who? Meyer Lansky. Because look at the date when Meyer died. I think it's in 82 or 83. He was still active till the very end. And a lot of this stuff, the heyday was kind of the late 70s, early 80s. And it did continue. Joey got busted in 81 and had to go to jail for a few years. And that's documented. That was in Long Island. They were coming up from Miami in a huge barge with 30 guys on it, with high-tech radar, night vision. Why? Because it's a professional operation. So they're all, and think about that. Night vision in 1981.
Yeah.
Did anyone even have that? They did. So there's the connection. It's shocking for people to hear like OJ Simpson and the mafia, huh? And look, I've done a few interviews, done some radio stuff. I'm not saying OJ Simpson had a scale in his bathroom and he was weighing out drugs. That's not what we're saying. We're saying is he was tied to these guys, introducing athletes, actors. There was point shaving, gambling, NFL stuff. Who's the perfect person to do that? OJ Simpson. He knows all the famous people. And if you really, I know a lot about OJ, obviously, but to the lay person, OJ was like a god to kids. Okay. He was the juice on the Wheaties box. He carried the torch in LA for the Olympics. So he was this mythical figure, good looking, charismatic, had a great voice. He was a good actor. Okay. He was on his own pedestal. Okay. So if there's any investigations, which there were with drugs for OJ, are you really going to arrest OJ Simpson? So he knew that he could play that card,
Yeah, because just going off using who he is, he can get away with it.
Unless you catch like 40 kilos on him,
yeah,
you're gonna take him to prison because he knows a drug dealer.
Yeah,
he was smart, man. I'm telling you, this whole thing. I look at cases. I worked many other famous murder cases, and I worked civilian also.
Yeah. This
one's very cerebral. You really got to have your head on straight to understand this one.
Yeah. So can you tell me, from how it started to escalate more, how their relationship got entwined even more closer leading up to that that night where the murders happened, and then up to those murders, how it went down?
Sure. So I had a source come forward. Obviously, look, I don't know OJ personally. I've tried to hang out with him. He doesn't want anything to do with me. Yep. And that's fine. I'm close to Charlie. I know a lot about Charlie. I know a lot about the Ippolitos. He still has a couple brothers alive. I've communicated with both of them. They're good guys. They're cool guys. A lot of the mob guys are pretty cool. Okay. Yep. If you cross them, yeah, you're up Schitt's Creek, right? But they're pretty cool. They know Joey was involved. They don't want to say it. They're not going to tell you for no money. They want to be paid, which I don't mind. I don't mind hustlers. Sometimes to get the information out, if you have to pay Joey's brothers, pay them. Yeah. Hollywood has billions of dollars. This is an important story. Pay the people. It's okay. So, but as the timeline, OJ knew Joey in the 80s, okay, in the 1980s. AC Collins knew Joey a lot closer in the early 90s. Okay. He bodyguarded for him.